Okay, so today, 15th of December, we will continue with chapter 3 about system view. Okay, so chapter 3.3 is focusing more on input-output management. Okay, input-output management. So what we are going to understand in this chapter is basically about how does the operating system and the computer system handle any input and output which is coming into the system and which is going out from the system. Okay, so there are a few techniques and methods and appropriate ways or techniques that is used by the computer system and operating system to handle any inputs which come in and go out from the system. Okay. Okay, let's see. So we are going to understand what is the main system organization of the computer system. All right. As you know, the computer system works on two main jobs, which is to receive input and to process it. Okay, so this is the basic idea of any computer system. Receive input, process it, and deliver the output. Okay, so the input can come from any type of input-output devices. It can even come from your mouse, from the keyboard. Even if you download a file from the internet, it's also considered an input. Okay, and sometimes an input also comes from another process as well. Okay, let's say for example, you type in something on your keyboard. So typing something on your keyboard is considered one input, and whatever appears on the screen is an output. Okay, but if you really go into detail, okay, the input from your keyboard is processed by the CPU and is delivered out as an output, and that output now becomes an input for the monitor to display on the screen. Okay, yes, although we say input from the keyboard, output to the monitor, but actually if you go into detail, it's actually input from the keyboard processed by the CPU as an output, and that output now becomes an input balik kepada your monitor and displays on your screen. Okay, so the role of operating system in this is to manage how the input and control the input-output operations and all the devices. As you know, there are many types of devices, input-output devices, connected to your personal computer. It can be from your keyboard, mouse, printer, scanner. Now you have web camera, your speakers, your modem. These are all I/O devices. Okay, and each I/O devices does a specific task. Okay, some I/O devices only allows you to input. There is no output. For example, your keyboard only allows you to input. Okay, there are some devices which allows you for both, like your modem allows you to input data if you want to connect to the internet, and maybe you can have an output if you're downloading something. Okay, so there are a few ways, methods that input in I/O devices do. Okay, there are also like printer which only does output only. It only prints. Okay, yes, it does have an input. If the input is, for example, let's say you're running out of paper or there's something wrong with the printer, then there's an output. But mostly, then there's an input. But mostly from the printer, it only receives an output for it to print. Okay, so when we are dealing with input-output devices, some input-output devices are different in terms of speed, in terms of the format, in terms of the data, amount of data that can be received. Okay, this is quite simple. Point number one, delivering different amounts of data. Some, if you take the input-output device, for example, your modem, okay, the speed of the modem, the size of the modem is different between one another. Okay, so if your modem speed is this much, it means that it can only receive the maximum amount of data, and it can only send out the maximum amount of data. If it goes on a different speed, okay, for example, hard disk. Okay, there are different types of hard disks. What are the different types of hard disks? Each hard disk are different in terms of speed and the storage. Okay, some hard disks are big in size besar, you can store so many files, but some hard disks are small where you can only store limited files. But their processing power is very strong, meaning to say whatever you store inside this hard disk is very fast. Okay, and this can be noticed whenever you on your PC, you boot your PC for the first time. If it takes a long time until you receive the Windows screen, then you can say that yes, your hard disk is slow. Okay, because it's taking some time. But once it is up and running, it's okay, it's fast enough. Okay, and there are also different types of format. Okay, you receive data from the internet, it's a different format. You type in something, characters on your keyboard, it's a different type of format. So each input output varies in terms of its format. All right. So the input output consideration that the CPU needs to highlight is the speed issue. Okay. Since each device is different, so there's some speed issues. How fast can this input and output be received by the CPU, and how fast can this input and output be processed or be taken by the by the CPU itself. Okay, because you have to understand, whenever the CPU needs to execute a particular file, that program, that process also needs to be stored inside the memory. For example, let's say you open your Microsoft Word. Okay, the file is located inside the hard disk. So once you double click the file now becomes an input for the CPU. So okay, so the file now becomes an input to the CPU and also an output to your monitor. Okay, input to your CPU, output to the monitor. However, if your hard disk is slow, then it will take some time for it to be loaded inside the memory and also inside the CPU. Why does it need to be loaded inside the CPU? Inside the memory. Because any process which is running or which is being executed or needs to be executed by the CPU needs to be inside the RAM. Needs to be inside the process memory. Even if you are listening to music, for example, if you open your YouTube, it needs to be processed by the CPU first. Okay, it needs to be processed by the CPU. Having said that, okay, the music will be inside your memory. Let's say you are composing a music from your PC and you want it to be heard. Okay, the CPU will execute this process and it goes through the memory again and it goes through the speakers as well. Okay, next, the input output consideration that the computer system is doing is coordinating. Why? Because it has several input output devices, so it needs to control it needs to coordinate which input output device gets to run first, second. Okay, and some input output devices will run simultaneously. You're printing at the same time, you're typing on your keyboard, you're downloading. Okay, so these are three input output device which is connected at the same time. Okay, which is connected at the same time. So there are certain issues that you need to consider. All right. So example of input output system devices are as follows. You have the keyboard, you have the mouse, you have a voice input. Okay, like I'm talking now, your mic. Each of these sends an input or output to the computer system, and the type or the format of the input are different. Okay, some go by character, some go by block. Okay, block by block. That's why sometimes when you can't hear a person talking on the internet, you can hear words, chunk of words, but you can't make it up. Okay, because the voice comes in terms of blocks. Okay, in terms of blocks. Okay, Printer also comes in terms of blocks. Okay, so it transfer block by block. So each block takes in between how many characters you can see here. Okay, and same goes to your hard disk. When data is transferred, it's transferred between block to block. Next, we are also looking at how this input-output is configured inside the computer system. Each input-output device, printer, keyboard, mouse, whatever, is controlled by an input-output modular. Input-output modular, I/O module, acts as a mediator between the processor and the input-output device. So between this and this, you have something in between. Okay. For example, let's say you wish to download certain files. So the CPU will request the file to be downloaded through the use of input-output module. So the module will inform the device, okay, you are supposed to download these files. Or the CPU will inform the input-output module, okay, please print this block by block. So they will continue printing. Okay, this is how it's being done. Okay, so what is the I/O modules for? Responsible for the control of one or more external devices, for the exchange of data between those devices and memory, okay, or CPU registers. Okay, what are CPU registers? Small amount of storage available as part of the CPU. Input-output module acts an interface to the device memory. Okay, because you have to, if you remember, each data or each process that needs to be processed by the CPU, which needs to be executed by the CPU, needs to be in the memory. So the input-output module will handle all the data into the memory as well. Okay, into the memory as well, and into the CPU registers. Okay, so basically this is how it looks like. CPU first checks the input-output module. Okay, ready ke, busy, or error, because it needs to make sure that the printer is working fine. If the printer is not working fine, then there needs to be a response from the printer. Before it starts printing, first it will check with the output module. Is the printer okay? Okay, printer is ready, then you can print. Okay, but how do you print? That's why you see point number 4 here. If ready, if the I/O module kata, okay, printer is ready, CPU will request data transfer. Request from who? Request from the memory, not from anywhere else. From the memory, okay, you go and get yourself printed. Why is it from the memory? Always remember, each process that needs to be executed by the CPU, the files are all located inside the memory. Sama juga macam your Microsoft Word. When Microsoft Word is being executed by the CPU, those files are all inside the memory. So once you request for a print, the CPU sends a signal first to the input-output module, check, printer okay ke tak? Alright, printer is okay. Next, CPU kata, okay, memory, send your documents inside your location to the input-output module for it to be printed. Alright. If there is a busy or maybe there's an error, then the input-output module will send a signal back to the CPU saying that, oh, there's an error, paper habis, or there's an error, something is wrong. Okay, so this is what the CPU, the I/O module will do. Okay, in order to handle each input-output module, there are 3 steps. Okay, program with pooling, interrupt-driven, and direct memory access. Okay, so there are 3 steps how the operating system handles each input-output module. One is using the pooling method. Number 2 is using the interrupt-driven I/O method. And number 4 is using direct memory access. The pooling method is whereby data are exchanged between CPU and input-output module. The CPU has direct control of the input-output module, meaning to say, when the CPU issues a command to the input-output module, it must wait until the I/O module operation is complete Pooling means the CPU is busy waiting. For example, if the CPU needs to print something, first it will send a command to the module. Kata, alright, are you free to be printed? Kat sini. CPU sending a command to the USB controller ni is the printer lah. Okay, is the I/O module lah. Alright, are you free to be printed? And the printer says, no, I'm doing something else. Okay, CPU will wait until it's complete. Okay, so this waiting process is now called pooling process. Okay, once the CPU, once the I/O module is free, then the command will take place. So pooling is the process whereby the computer or controlling device waits for an external device to check for its readiness or state, often with low-level hardware. For example, when a printer is connected via a parallel port, the computer waits until the printer has received the next character. Okay, so pooling means is waiting. That means it said there are two conditions. One is waiting. That means sebelum ni tak habis lagi. So let it wait. So in the meantime, it's pooling. Okay, pooling. Number two is what if there is no response. Katakan there is no response from the printer, then it's also waiting. Maybe there is an error in terms of the cable connection problem ke, or maybe there is less of paper, so it's also pooling. Next, interrupt-driven input-output. The CPU issues a command and then continues to execute other instructions. The input-output module issues an interrupt when it's complete its task. Kalau yang pooling tadi tu, dia tunggu je. Dia wait je. It does not do anything else. It just waits lah. That means it's waiting. Waiting for the device to say, okay, print, go. Okay. But in an input-output, but in an interrupt-driven I/O, it sends a signal to the module. Module kata belum lagi, so it continues doing something else. The CPU executes the next process. Once the input-output module is ready to be printed, is ready to accept, the signal balik to the CPU and say, okay, I'm done. Please send your document. Okay, please send your document. Pooling means the CPU does not do anything. Okay, it waits. Let's say you want to come and you want to go and see your boss. Okay, your boss is busy with a meeting, so you wait outside his door. You don't do anything. Okay. In terms of input-output driven, interrupt-driven, you go and see your boss, he is busy, and then you go away and you do something else, you makan, do something else. Then when he's free, there will be a signal. PA dia call awak, kata, okay, boss is free, you can come and go and see, you can come and see him. That is interrupt-driven input-output. Okay. Once the input-output is free, it will signal back to the CPU to inform that it's free. Okay, that is input-output or interrupt-driven input-output. Okay, the next one is what we say is direct memory access. Okay, when there is large of blocks of data need to be transferred between a device and a main memory, the CPU sends a signal to a chip called direct memory access. Okay. What does this mean? From a device to main memory. From a device. What is a device? Let's take, for example, a hard disk. Okay, hard disk is a device. Okay, let's say you are transferring data from your hard disk to your PC, to your main memory, because you want to open the file lah. Okay, you nak run file tu. Okay, you nak buka. And file tu dalam, let's say let's say that is in your thumb drive. Okay, you want to open a big file. But always remember, whenever whenever there is an input to the system or the file does not know where to go. The CPU will tell the file or tell the program, okay, this file goes inside memory. But if you're transferring a large amount of data to the memory, then it does not straight go to the CPU. It straight goes to the memory. Okay, so kenapa dia what's the difference between this and the normal process? In a normal process, any files which needs to be executed by the operating system is run by the CPU, correct? But each file is inside the memory. Okay, so they execute dalam CPU, but file-file itu duduk dalam memory. Okay, so what is happening actually is the CPU is telling the program, okay, all your files need to be inside the memory. But in direct memory access, since there is a large amount of data, the CPU cuts this connection and says, okay, all these files are automatically inside the memory. Automatically inside memory for me to execute. That is why in direct memory access, the direct memory access disconnects the CPU to feed data directly from the input-output module to the memory. Okay, so in the direct memory access is from the I/O module terus masuk ke dalam memory. Dia tak masuk dalam CPU dulu. In a normal process, let's say you're transferring data from the internet, data tu masuk dalam I/O module, then masuk dalam CPU, kat mana nak bagi, and then it goes back to the memory. Why does it do that? Because the input, the CPU needs to know what is the file about and where to locate it. But in a condition where you have large amount of data, then CPU kata they'll disconnect, okay, this large amount of data straight goes into the direct memory access and straight goes into the memory. It does not need to go through the CPU. Okay, these inputs are normally you can get it from your sound card, from your graphic card, okay, where you get large or big amounts of data coming in from your input output. So the direct memory access benefit is much more faster than the normal input output devices. But then you might ask, kenapa nak pakai direct memory? Kenapa tak pakai semua pakai direct memory access? So direct memory access only is applicable if you have large amount of data coming in constantly, secara berterusan. You download something from the internet, okay, and this data is very big, it's coming all the time. So you have direct memory access. Does the user like us determine which file goes to direct memory access? Tak. The operating system will automatically see if the file is big, then it will straight put it inside the memory, not going through the CPU. Why does it not go through the CPU? Because the CPU, if large amount of data is executed by the CPU, then the CPU will be too busy and not doing something else. But in this case, you can have all the data coming in, and at the same time, you boleh buat benda-benda lain. Okay, all benda-benda lain. Example, you download file daripada UFuture, and at the same time, you boleh buat benda lain. You can do your Microsoft Word, you boleh buat Excel, PowerPoint, tapi kat belakang tu, you tengah download the file. No problem, keep downloading. That is what it means by direct memory access. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Just stop me and ask me. Yeah? Okay. When the CPU encounters instruction relating to input-output, now it needs to communicate. So again, macam saya cakap tadi, ada 3 cara the input-output communicates with the CPU, which is the pooling method, interrupt-driven, and direct memory access. Pooling method is whereby it checks with the device and say, is the device ready, error? So it waits. Once the device kata, okay, I am free, then data will transfer. Interrupt driven is where a situation whereby it sends data to the printer, for example, but the printer is busy. So in this particular case, the CPU will continue doing something else, and once the hardware or device is ready, it will signal back to the CPU, and automatically data will be processed. Direct memory access, on the other hand, is whereby a situation where you have large number of data coming in, so the CPU disconnects itself, and all this large number of data will go directly to your memory. It happens mostly when you're loading big amount of data coming in from, let's say, your internet, okay, coming in from your hard disk, okay, you have large amount of data. The advantages of having direct memory access is the CPU can be fully utilized doing something else rather than just waiting for all the data to come in, right? So you can read this on your own, it's all the same, okay? All right, next we're moving into buffering. What is buffer? Buffer is a small set of memory which is storing data between two devices or between a device and application. Okay, so the buffer, what is the use of buffer? Let's say, example, a file is being received via the modem for storage in your hard disk. Okay, the modem is 100 times slower than the hard disk. So a buffer is created in the main memory to accumulate the bytes received from the modem. Okay, since the modem is slow but the hard disk is fast, so a buffer dia akan kumpulkan all the file. Bila dah cukup certain amount, baru dia transfer masuk dalam hard disk. Buffering. Okay, sometimes you can always see this whenever you download big files from the internet, you'll see the process of buffering, meaning it's collecting data. Your data is not inside your hard disk, it's just collecting information. Once it has reached a certain amount, then it will transfer into your hard disk. Reach certain amount, then transfer. That is buffering. So there are a few reasons of why you want to use buffering: to provide adaptation. Okay, yang pertama tadi is speed mismatch, where you have different types of speed. Yang kedua is to provide adaptation for devices that have different data transfer size. Okay, dalam network lah normally. Okay, you're sending big file, you're downloading big files, or you're receiving big files, or you're transmitting big files. Okay, so you need a buffer, a place to store it. Once it has reached a certain amount, then the results will be transferred out or transferred in. Or you want to copy semantics. Okay, what does this semantics mean? That means, let's say, for example, you download some information. Okay, or maybe you are watching a movie online. Okay, bila you watch a movie online, data comes inside your memory, but it's actually not actually inside memory. It goes inside your buffer. So if you want to, if you want to go back and see certain sections, it just gets the information from the buffer. Okay, get the information from the buffer. So you can actually copy the semantics only from the buffer. All right. So there are a few types of buffer. There is a block version. Each data is transferred in terms of block after block. Normally this is for your hard disk lah. Okay. Or stream. This is normally when you say stream, maksudnya daripada printer, daripada modem, because it's streaming. Streaming means data is coming in a flow. Block means the data is being transferred. A certain number of characters, transfer. Certain number of characters, transfer. Kalau streaming, dia datang satu. It's being streamed continuously. Alright? So there are a few types again, line by line or byte by byte as well. Okay. So there are three types of buffer that we need to understand. One is what we say is a single buffer, double buffer, and circular buffer. A single buffer is basically very simple. There is no buffer. Straight saja data itu masuk. Or, there is when we talk about single buffer, there is a buffer here inside the operating system, and once it has reached a certain limit, data will be transferred out from the buffer here inside to the CPU over here, or the hard disk over here. Okay. If there is no buffer, data is transmitted directly. If this is done, then it will go much slower than without a buffer. So a single buffer is data is being transferred into the buffer first. Once dah cukup, then dia transfer to your. A circular buffer is, dalam ni ada a few types. So dia akan penuhkan all this buffer first, and then once it has reached a certain amount, only then it transfers to the hard disk over here. This is called a double buffer. A circular buffer pula, okay, it circulates only around here, okay, and if there is a request to get a certain type of file, okay, you are still available to get it here. That means it only circulates here. Let's say dah sampai sini dah penuh dah kat sini, so it transfers, okay, but the original file is still here. Dalam buffer ni ada lagi file original. Kat sini you dah buat changes dah. So a circular buffer is more than 2 buffers and it circulates around the operating system. Why do I say operating system pula kat sini? Because you have to remember, buffer is inside the memory. Okay, it's a small location which is located near the memory or sometimes inside the memory. As compared to registers, registers are different. Register duduk dalam CPU, but buffer duduk tepi. Some OS, some PC has it near the memory, or some computer system has it inside the memory. All right. So a circular buffer, the data is being circulated, only then it's being transferred out to the hard disk. Double buffer dia penuhkan, habis satu buffer dia penuhkan, dua je, dia ada dua je. Okay, dah dua-dua penuh, baru dia transfer. Circular ni dia berpusing. And then dia transfer sikit. Masa dia transfer, data dalam circular ni tak dibuang lagi. Okay. Kalau double buffer ni, once it's full, it's been transferred out everything. So there is no data inside the double buffer anymore. In a circular, dia transfer and data ni disimpan lagi. Just in case if there is a need to get the old data. Sebab probably mungkin bila data dah transfer masuk dalam hard disk, there is a need for you to get the old version, so you can undo balik, you can get it balik. A circular buffer always works. Biasanya kalau you tengok masa you buat undo kan, Control Z, you buat Microsoft Word, tiba-tiba you silap, oh you nak undo. So when you undo, that data is actually coming from your buffer inside a circular buffer, because that data is still available there. However, once you close the application, you dah save, you dah close, the circular buffer is clear. So buffer is not only used, you have to also remember, buffer ni bukan hanya untuk download, upload data. It is being utilized all the time. Even when you open Microsoft Word, even when you open anything, the buffer is being activated. That is why you can undo, redo balik, because the data is all inside the buffer before you save it for the final time. Okay? All right? Any questions so far for today? Okay, thank you so much for attending my class today. Make sure you sign your attendance, and inshallah I'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, sir.
Salam, sir. Thank you.